There was no note, no bouvier, no slammed door, just her wedding ring. It was sitting beside a half-loaded dishwasher, wedged between a cereal bowl and a bent fork. The light above the sink flickered. I stared at the ring like it was radioactive, like touching it might confirm this wasn't some twisted hallucination. The TV was still on upstairs. Her favorite crime series was playing. A glass of wine on the nightstand, lipstick on the rim. Her phone? Gone. Her purse? Gone. Her coat? Still hanging by the door. Like she didn't even need it where she was going. Outside, it was raining sideways, and the wind sounded like it was trying to say something through the window cracks. I just stood there, for 10, maybe 15 minutes. My fingers twitching, eyes stuck on that stupid, silent dishwasher that never quite closed all the way. You'd think when someone leaves you, really leaves, you get a final word. A scream, a fight, a breakdown. But no, what I got was that ring, staring back at me like a dare. And the worst part? She had told me earlier that evening. I'm heading out for a bit. That's all. Nothing strange. No tensión. No cue that I should have done anything other than nod. So I did what I always did. I nodded and said, if you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. I meant it, but I didn't expect her to actually listen. The garage light turned on by itself an hour later. That motion sensor had been busted for months. I grabbed the bat I keep behind the fridge and opened the door slow. The garage was empty, except for her suitcase. The one I hadn't seen in years. The one from our honeymoon. So either she had come back to leave it behind, or someone else had come back to leave it for me. I didn't touch it at first. The suitcase was sitting right in the center of the garage floor, zipped up and spotless like it hadn't been gathering dust in the attic for years. The moment I saw it, my pulse dropped into my stomach. It wasn't just the suitcase that shook me. It was the position. Dead center. Too deliberate. Too rehearsed. I remember backing away slowly, trying to convince myself that maybe she'd just come back quickly, dropped it off, and left again. But then the garage light clicked off. Darkness swallowed everything except the edges of the suitcase glowing from the hallway light behind me. And something about that made my whole body feel hollow. I turned around. The tag was still there. From our trip to Coeur d'Alene 8 years ago. We had fought the entire drive there, then held hands at the lake like we were high school sweethearts. I stood over it for what felt like forever. Then I unzipped it. Inside were 4 things. A folded blouse I had never seen before, soft blue with pearl buttons. A makeup bag that didn't belong to her. It was monogrammed with someone else's initials. A single man's shirt, clearly not mine. And a photo. An actual printed photo, like from a disposable camera. It had curled at the corners. Her smile in the picture was wide. Wider than anything I'd seen from her in years. But what really gutted me was who took the photo. Because I wasn't in it. I wasn't even near it. I had never been there. It was a bar. Dim, stylish. Not local. Her arms were around someone taller, wearing that same shirt. His face was half-turned, blurry, but it was enough to see the closeness. The casual intimacy. Like they'd done this a dozen times before. I dropped the photo. It fluttered to the concrete like it weighed nothing. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do with my hands. I stood there with clenched fists, as if I was supposed to punch a ghost. As if there was anyone left in that house to argue with. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but it was like my body wouldn't give me the satisfaction. So I did something stupid. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Again. By the 6th try, my voice cracked. Not from sadness, but from something worse, humiliation. And somewhere in the background of my voicemail ranting, I swear I could hear a man's voice. Not hers. A laugh. Quick. Confident. She had changed her voicemail greeting. No more, "Hi, it's Kasia, leave a message." Just a generic robotic message. I sat down on the cold garage floor and stared at that suitcase like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. And just when I was about to go back inside, my phone lit up. Blocked number. 1 ring. 2. I answered. Silence. Then a voice, quiet. Male, almost amused. "She told you not to wait up, didn't she?" Click. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about a fight. This wasn't about a marriage falling apart. This was something planned. And I was the only one who hadn't known. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat on the edge of the garage steps until the cold from the concrete worked its way up into my bones. At some point, I went back into the kitchen, poured a glass of tap water, and stared at the digital clock on a microwave like it owed me answers. 2:47 nachts. It was around then that I noticed something strange, barely noticeable, but off enough to make my breath catch. The house alarm was still armed. That might not sound like much, but we always disarmed it before going out. Always. It chirped loud enough to wake the neighbors if the front door opened while it was active. So either she never left through the front door, or someone knew how to bypass the alarm entirely. I checked the front door. Locked. Untouched. Then the back. Still bolted. Windows? No signs of entry. I went back upstairs, half expecting to find something else missing. But everything looked exactly the same. The comforter pulled halfway back. Her perfume still lingering in the air. A pair of earrings on the dresser. But no Kasia. Except there was something under the bed. I got down on my knees, heart pounding for no good reason. I reached in, expecting dust bunnies or an old sock. Instead, I pulled out a small envelope. Unmarked. Heavy. Inside were 2 hotel key cards. No note. No receipt. Just keys to somewhere I hadn't been invited. I stared at them, wondering if this was meant for me to find, or if someone else had meant to come back for them. I was so deep in my own head, I didn't hear the footsteps at first. Faint. Upstairs. Right above me. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. My heart thudded so loudly I was convinced someone, or something, would hear it. I waited. Nothing. Then, 3 slow steps again. Clear this time. On the hallway floor above the kitchen. I grabbed the bat again. My mouth was dry. My thoughts a tangle of what if she came back, and what if it's not her, and what if I never knew who she really was. I crept toward the stairs, every step groaning beneath my weight. The light at the top was flickering. The same bulb I'd promised her I'd replace 3 weeks ago. I hadn't, and now it felt like that stupid flicker was warning me of something I couldn't yet name. I reached the top. Empty hallway. Our bedroom door? Open. Same as before. Guest room? Empty. Then I heard it. From inside the closet. A soft clack, like something falling or shifting. I stepped forward, bat raised, chest tight. Reached for the door, pulled it open in one sharp motion. Nothing. Just clothes. A shoebox. A faint, musty smell of cologne that didn't belong to me. Then I noticed her old tablet on the shelf. Kasia hadn't used it in over a year. Claimed it was broken. I powered it on. No lock screen. She must have reset it. There were only 2 apps installed. A photo gallery and an encrypted messaging app one didn't recognize. I opened the gallery first. Every image was recent. None of me. None of our daughter. Just Kasia. Kasia smiling. Kasia laughing. Kasia on balconies. In lobbies. In bed. But never alone. Always with the same man. Same blurred face. Same dark shirts. Always hiding just enough to keep his identity from me. But what caught me off guard was that she wasn't just with him. She was looking at him like she used to look at me 10 years ago. The kind of look you don't fake. The kind you can't explain. And that's when I realized this wasn't new. It had been going on for a while. Long enough for her to feel safe enough to document it. Long enough to plan her exit. And long enough to make sure I found just enough to shatter without fully breaking. At least not yet. I didn't sleep. Again. I sat in the hallway with that tablet on my lap for hours, the blue glow washing over the walls like moonlight filtered through a dirty window. Every image I scrolled through felt like a punch I couldn't dodge, each one just slightly more intimate than the last. No full reveals, no graphic scenes, but enough, just enough to humiliate me in slow motion. The man never looked directly at the camera. Either she cropped his face out or he kept his head turned just slightly. It made him feel like a phantom, and somehow that made it worse. There's something uniquely cruel about being replaced by someone whose eyes you can't even look into. Eventually, I tapped the other app. The icon was sleek, black and gold. I had never seen it before. Not some standard chat messenger. That much was obvious. It opened with a passcode screen. For a second, I thought that was the end of it. But then I remembered, Kasia was methodical, but not always careful. I typed in the hotel room number that had been scribbled faintly on one of the key cards. The app opened. The first message at the top wasn't a greeting or a flirt. It was a location pin, sent 2 nights ago. Then a photo of our house, our actual house, taken from across the street, at night, from inside a car. Then came the voice notes. Her voice, light and conspiratorial, like a teenager sneaking out of her parents' house. He's still clueless. It's kind of cute, honestly. Another one. I think he finally suspects something. He got weird about the groceries yesterday, like he noticed I wasn't buying the brand of cereal he likes anymore. Then one from him. Finally, the ghost speaks. His voice was calm, older, unbothered. Let him. Men like him don't leave. They wait around. They write letters they'll never send. And then she laughed. That laugh. The one I hadn't heard in months. It wasn't just happy, it was free, careless, like I never existed. It crushed something in me I didn't even know was still intact. I closed the app, sat there on the floor. My throat was raw and my head felt like it was stuffed with broken glass. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. And it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that I had allowed this, that I'd ignored the signs, excused them, explained them away in the name of rough patches and stress. And she knew it. She counted on it. That's what made it all so calculated. When the sun started creeping through the blinds downstairs, I finally got up. Not because I had a plan, not because I wanted revenge, but because I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed the key cards and the tablet and walked out to my car. No excuse, no wallet, just rage and questions. And as I backed out of the driveway, something caught my eye, movement from the neighbor's window. Mrs. Enright, our sweet, 80-year-old neighbor, always waving, always smiling. But not this time. This time, she was standing completely still at the window, pale, blank-faced, and in her hand, she was holding my wife's purse, the one that had vanished when she did. I didn't drive off. My hand stayed locked on the gear shift, my foot hovering over the brake, eyes glued to that window like I was watching a stranger through glass. Only it wasn't a stranger. It was Mrs. Enright, and in her hand was definitely Cash's purse. The tan leather one I gave her for our 10th anniversary. She had hated it, said it was too stiff, but she wore it anyway. Out of politeness, I thought. And now here it was, dangling limply from the fingers of the sweet old woman next door like it belonged to her all along. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't even blink. She just stood there, holding it, and then slowly, so slowly, it slipped from her grip and disappeared behind the curtain. Something inside me shifted then, a quiet kind of panic that didn't look like fear at first. It was too calm, too cold, like my body knew something long before my brain would catch up. I got out of the car, walked barefoot across our perfectly trimmed lawn, stepped over the shallow hedge between the driveways, and knocked on her door. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Footsteps shuffled inside. The lock clicked. The door opened a sliver. Her face peeked through, fragile, tired, but still carrying that eerie calm. "Morning, Ellery," she said like nothing was off. Like I hadn't just seen her cradle my wife's purse like it was a borrowed handbag. "Mrs. Enright," I replied, careful even. "Did Casha leave something here?" She looked past me for a moment, like scanning the street. Then her voice dropped, almost like she was afraid of being overheard. She said to keep it safe. That sentence alone felt like it rearranged something in my brain. She what? She told me if anything happened, if you came asking, I should give this to you. And then, without waiting for permission, she handed me a thick white envelope from the hallway table. It had my name written on the front, my full name, in Cash's handwriting. Inside were 2 things. First, a flash drive. Second, a letter. Not a long one, just 6 lines. "Ellery, if you're reading this, it means I did what you warned me not to. I'm not sorry. I needed out, and I took the only exit that made sense. You'll understand soon. Don't follow me. No signature. No explanation. No date." I looked up at Mrs. Enright, but she was already closing the door. "That's all she left," she said gently. "I don't know where she went." I didn't ask. The door latched softly. Silence. I walked back to my house like a sleepwalker. Everything around me looked the same, but none of it felt real anymore. The driveway, the porch, the door, the hallway, They all felt like set pieces on a stage I didn't know I'd been performing on. Back inside, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop, hands shaking. It loaded automatically. One folder. No name. Inside were 3 video files. The first one was just Kasia, sitting in a hotel room I didn't recognize, looking directly into the camera. "Ellery," she said, "you were right about the door." And I opened it anyway. "But not for the reason you think." She paused, looked away, then added, "I hope when you find this, you'll finally stop blaming yourself." The video cut out. The second one was worse. Security footage. From inside a parking garage. Kasia and the man, her phantom, arguing near a black car. Heated, close, aggressive. Then something changed in the tension. She backed away. He advanced. The timestamp flickered. And then, suddenly, the video glitched. When it returned, the car was gone. So was she. He stood alone, motionless, staring up at the camera for a full 20 seconds. Then he smiled. The third video? Just a black screen. With a voiceover. Kasia's again. I thought this was going to be about love. About escaping something broken. But now I know I was a passenger in someone else's plan. Click. End. No answers. No next steps. Just silence. And a line from the letter echoing louder than ever. I took the only exit that made sense. And for the first time since this started, I didn't want to know what she meant. But I knew I didn't have a choice. I didn't touch the flash drive again. Didn't rewind. Didn't play it back. I couldn't. My mind kept replaying that final voiceover. Her words echoing in a tone that wasn't quite fear, wasn't quite guilt, but something between resignation and dread. Passenger in someone else's plan. That stuck with me more than anything. Because if she wasn't the one behind all this, who was? I didn't even realize I'd been pacing the living room until I noticed the sun had shifted across the floor and the shadows from the window blinds were climbing the couch like a slow leak of darkness. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't changed clothes. I was still barefoot, still gripping that envelope like it had weight beyond paper. That's when I remembered the one place in the house I hadn't checked. The basement. Kasia hated the basement. Or so I thought. She used to joke that it smelled like wet secrets. But sometime last year, she started locking the door. I never asked why. I assumed it was to keep raccoons out. Or because she was hiding birthday presents again. The truth is, I didn't ask because I didn't want to know. But now I had to. I found the keys buried in the junk drawer beneath batteries, broken pens, and old receipts from restaurants we used to pretend we liked. The basement door was stiff, swollen from months of humidity. When it finally gave, it groaned open like something was waking up down there. I flicked the light switch, and the single bulb at the bottom hummed to life. It wasn't what I expected. There were no spiders, no dust, no old paint cans or forgotten storage bins. Instead, there were folding chairs, 4 of them, arranged in a circle, and in the center, a table, small, round metal. On it, a stack of printed photographs. Not of Kasia, not of me, but of strangers, couples, women, men, some candid, some clearly taken from a distance. A few were circled in red marker. Beside the stack, there was a thick manila folder. Inside, detailed notes, printed emails, screenshots, maps, timelines, and Kasia's handwriting again. Sharp, slanted, urgent. Target married 9 years. Already showing signs of detachment. Suspect grooming. Potential leverage. Financial dependency. My chest tightened. I flipped page after page. Every couple was documented like case files. Behavior patterns. Surveillance times. Known addresses. Some of the notes were marked completed. Others, pending. And then I found a file with our names on it. Gray, Ellery plus Kasia. Inside, a log of our habits. My morning routine. The grocery store I stopped at every Thursday. The brand of coffee I drank. The hours I spent working. Kasia's therapy appointments. The dates I thought she was visiting her sister, except her sister moved out of state 3 years ago. There was one photo in that folder I hadn't seen before. Me, sitting alone on a bench outside our local library, holding my phone. The date printed in the corner was from 5 weeks ago. Kasia hadn't been in town that day. She had said she was out of state for a work retreat. There was no way she could have taken that photo herself, which means someone else was following me. And she knew it. Or worse, She arranged it. But why? Why document our own life like a case study? Why act like she was preparing evidence against me? I stepped back from the table. My legs shook. The entire basement suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. And then I noticed something else. The fourth chair in the circle, the one directly across from the stairs, had scuff marks underneath it, like it had been dragged toward the shadows along the wall. I followed the marks to the far side, where the concrete had a long, jagged crack splitting through the floor. Beside the crack was something small, black, a recording device. Battery powered, still blinking, still active. I picked it up, hit rewind, and pressed play. At first, silence. Then, her voice again. But this time, it wasn't for me. He's losing track of time. That's when it starts. That's when they become unstable, just like the others. Then the same man's voice, low and steady. You're doing great. Just a few more days. He'll either walk away, or we finish it for him. My hand started to tremble. I wasn't losing her. I was being erased. I didn't go back upstairs. Not for hours. I sat on the basement floor, knees up, recorder in my hand, that phrase repeating in my head like a curse. He'll either walk away, or we finish it for him. Finish what? I whispered to no one. The walls didn't answer. The ceiling didn't creak. Even the hum of the basement light had stopped, burned out, or just exhausted from watching too much. The only sound was my own breath, ragged and uneven. By the time I climbed back into the kitchen, it was dark out. The fridge light blinked when I opened it and realized I hadn't eaten in nearly 2 days. But food felt foreign, mechanical. I couldn't chew with everything inside me clenched like a coiled wire. Instead, I sat at the table and stared at the hotel keycard Kasia had left in the suitcase. I turned it over. No hotel name, no address, just a number, 317. And on the back, in faint ink almost worn to smudge, check in after 10. Don't knock twice. What kind of hotel even writes something like that? It was a 20-minute drive. I didn't take the highway. I went slow, back roads, engine humming beneath me like it knew I wasn't coming back the same. The building was just off an industrial stretch near the rail yard. Old red bricks, flickering green neon letters that spelled out the Birchwood Inn, half of them dead. The parking lot was cracked and mostly empty, just 2 cars, a silver SUV and a black sedan with tinted windows I recognized from Kasia's video. I pulled in, left my lights off. The lobby was abandoned. No front desk clerk, just a laminated note taped to a cracked plexiglass window. Late check-ins, room 317. Leave key in drop box upon exit. No names, no signatures, no security cameras. I took the stairs. Every step groaned under my weight. The hallway on the 3rd floor smelled like bleach and mothballs, a mix that made my eyes sting. Room 317 was at the far end. The light above it flickered once and held steady. I stood outside that door, heart pounding so hard it shook my ribs. My fingers hovered over the handle. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I just slid the card through the lock. It clicked. The door swung open. No one was inside, but the room wasn't empty. There were candles, burned down to wax puddles. A laptop on the bed, open and still glowing. A projector screen hung from the wall, blank but humming. And on the table, directly in the center, was a file folder marked gray/finalization, Phase 3. I opened it. Inside were surveillance photos of me from the last 3 weeks. Sitting in traffic, leaving the pharmacy, talking to our daughter outside her school. Always alone, always distant. Then a second folder. Kasia, smiling, laughing, leaving buildings I'd never seen before. Holding hands with the man from the earlier footage. But now his face wasn't obscured. It was clear. He looked familiar, unsettlingly so, like someone I'd seen in dreams I couldn't remember. I flipped to the final page. It was a transcript. Kasia's voice, transcribed word for word. He's been easy to manipulate. Guilty people usually are. They want to believe they deserve it. Ellery doesn't need a push, just the illusion of choice. Then his voice. Let's finish his script. Let him think he figured it out. That's the cleanest way. No blood, no noise. Just silence. And her final words in the transcript. Good. Because when he finds room 317, I want him to think this is the end. The room began to feel smaller, like the walls were inching inward, like something unseen was watching from the corners. I turned off the projector, grabbed the laptop, and started for the door, but it slammed shut before I reached it. And from behind it, a voice I hadn't heard in person since this all began said calmly, "Ellery, you weren't supposed to come here alone. Ellery, you weren't supposed to come here alone." The voice was steady, deep, calm. I turned slowly. He was already inside the room, as if he'd been there the whole time, hidden in shadow or just waiting for the right moment. The same man from the videos. The one always blurred, always faceless, now unmistakably real. He didn't look how I imagined. No suit, no swagger, just a plain jacket, dark eyes, a face that carried the weight of someone who knew too much and had long stopped caring. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he motioned to the chair near the table. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "You were never the target. You were the variable." I didn't sit. I couldn't. "Where's Kasia?" "She left," he said simply. "On her own terms. That's all I can tell you." "No, that's not all," I snapped. "You manipulated her. You watched me. You recorded my daughter. You called my phone." "What?" He exhaled like he was tired of explaining things to people who were already too broken to understand. "We collect patterns. People in spiraling relationships. High-risk emotional isolation. You were part of a larger behavioral study. Kasia volunteered. You were monitored. Documented." I blinked, confused. "A study, privately funded," he said. "She agreed to participate in exchange for a severance package. Relocation. A clean break. You mean she got paid to break my heart?" He looked me dead in the eye. "She got paid to survive it." That landed harder than I expected. I staggered back like he'd shoved me. My hands gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. "So, this was never about love? Never about marriage?" "On the contrary," he said, "it was about how love ends. Cleanly, safely, without violence, without lawyers, without children in the crossfire." I stared at him, my mind racing with images I didn't know how to categorize. I thought of the video in the parking garage, the transcripts, the voice recorder, the fake fights, the carefully placed clues that felt real but were never designed to hurt, only to nudge. "Kasia wanted to vanish," he continued, "but she didn't want to destroy you to do it. That's why she left everything behind. Why she gave you the tools to understand, even if it took you months to decode them." I looked at the folder again, at the word, finalization. Then I asked the one thing I had no right to. "Is she happy?" He paused for the first time. "I believe she's trying to be." That was it. No lies. No promises. Just something real in a room full of manipulation. He handed me an envelope. "There's no forwarding address, but there's closure, if you want it. Inside, a plane ticket. One way. Not in her name. In mine. To Coeur d'Alene, the place where we once tried to fix things. Where everything began to end. There's a cabin under your name," he said. "She left the key at the front desk 2 days ago. Whether you go or not is your decision." He left the room after that. Quietly. No threats. No warnings. Just the soft click of the door behind him. And I stood there alone for a long time, trying to decide whether to burn it all down or follow the thread to whatever came next. That was 4 months ago. I'm writing this now from that cabin in Coeur d'Alene. It's quiet here. The lake hasn't changed. The air feels cleaner. I never saw her again. But on the second morning, there was a note tucked under the woodpile. Just one sentence. "You were the only part that didn't need scripting." And for the first time in years, I believed it. I walk every morning. I cook. I write in a notebook I used to be too afraid to open. I even fixed the old canoe on the shore. I still don't have all the answers, but I have peace. And after everything, honestly, that's enough.